Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I have done a 3 card spread of the week with my tarot cards. Just did a quick obstacle advice outcome, and I wanted to share the results with you. So this is just kind of, like I said, a general reading for the week. The first card I got for the obstacles is the Five of Cups. And then the second card is going to be the Ace of Wands. That's the advice card. And I'll go over these, dive into them a little bit more in detail in just a minute, so don't worry. And then the last card, the outcome, is the Nine of Swords. So for the obstacles, the first card here, the Five of Cups, what that says to me is that there's been a lot of loss, and there has been a lot of grief, and I get this sense of like a long period of mourning in your life. And I know that sometimes it's really easy to get caught up in that mental storm of thinking about all the things that could have been, all of the things that should have been, why this happened, why this didn't happen. And we can kind of really get lost inside that. And I know whenever you are going through a period that's really heavy, with these darker feelings and these, sorrow and mourning, that sometimes you can kind of take comfort or solace in the sadness, as odd as that sounds. You might feel like that is like the fortress that you have left, right? And that can kind of be a tempting thing. Even if you don't want to set up camp there, sometimes we just get bogged down. So that's what this card says to me, is like that moment, just be really wary of kind of not losing yourself inside of it. And of course, like, it's okay to give into, these conflicts of emotion. Like, mourning brings healing, and, nobody's saying like don't grieve or don't mourn, because I think that's a really healthy thing. We have to face those emotions and those aspects of ourselves. But just make sure that you don't stay there. So something someone told me once that really kind of stayed with me was, it's okay to stay and rest for a while, just don't set up camp here. And I think that's what this card is really saying. One aspect of it here, if you'll look, the owl is looking out over the broken eggs there, which is, the cause of the mourning that she's feeling, of that grief and that loss. But it seems that she doesn't really see these 2 eggs that remain intact behind her, that she can't see what she has left for the mourning that she feels for what she has lost. And I think that that's a really important note to pay attention to as well, that there are probably things in your life that still need your attention, or that you could still benefit from, that there is still good in your life, even though it seems like so much has been taken away. And perhaps that's family, perhaps it's friends, or just those, little joys and comforts that we find in our life. So don't ignore those because you're too caught up in just looking at what you've lost, right? So it's really like a note, I think, for me, that like all is not lost. And when the time for mourning is over, you have to be able to pick up the pieces. And it takes a lot of courage to do that and to move on from that place. And it takes a lot of love and tenderness to continue to nurture the things in your life that are still there for you. So that's what I got from the obstacle, that's going to be the hurdle for some of you this week, is, moving on from that place. The advice for that then is the Ace of Wands. And aces are all about new beginnings, which is a fantastic place to go after that Five of Cups, right? Because if you are having to move on, this is the time to start something new, right? Especially with the wands, I sense like this spark of passion, of interest, of excitement. And I feel like that spark is felt by other people around you as well. And if you can kind of fan that into a flame and start to pursue those passions again, start to, go after those goals, then that enthusiasm and that charisma is really going to draw people and opportunities to you that are going to help benefit you in that situation. I love the image of the fox here. And because I always kind of associate that like cleverness and passion and that really fiery energy, which is really what's being called for at this time. So if the obstacle is to overcome those feelings of mourning, of loss, of grief, and kind of move on, then I think the Ace of Wands is not just seeing what's left after all the devastation, but learning to rebuild again, and learning to live again. Kind of living versus survival is kind of also what I get here as well. I do get the sense that this Ace of Wands could be like a new relationship, or, romantic encounters. But it could also be like a passion project, or, maybe starting a new business or something like that. Whatever that seed and that goal is, now is the time to go after that. And whatever it is, I get the feeling it's going to be a very exciting adventure. A little bit of a word of caution with the Ace of Wands as well, because it is very fiery energy. And we all know that fire can get out of control if it's not tended to, right? So it's kind of a balance between, you want to fan it from this spark into a flame, right? But that flame can also burn down the forest if you leave it, unattended. So just don't run yourself into the ground. Be sure that you're not like burning out relationships or bridges around you, that you're not chasing this to the exclusion of everything else in your life. But for the most part, it's a pretty good card. Definitely a good sign for new beginnings. So if you've kind of got that in the back of your mind that you think you might know what I'm talking about, then you probably know exactly what this card is pointing to, and it's time to get out there and start making moves towards that. Then the outcome is the Nine of Swords. And this is a card that a lot of people kind of shy away from when they see it in a reading. It's not the most positive card for sure. But I think that here, as the outcome, what this says to me is that the weight of all of the responsibility that you're feeling, of kind of making that transition and finding your way out of that haze and, chasing your passions, that this might kind of be overwhelming for you, that it might be weighing really heavily on your mind, and causing some fears and some anxieties, especially to do with the unknown, what the future might hold for you if you do make these changes, if you do go after these things. I see the Nine of Swords, especially with this deck, I can see this fear that is stemming from the Nine of Swords is very akin to a fear of the dark. So it's more emotional than rational. It's more instinctual than something that you can kind of explain and logic your way out of. So just keep that in mind, that I think in the end, even though it seems like this really daunting, physical, in-your-face thing, that I think it's important to keep in mind that a lot of anxieties and a lot of those fears can just be stemming from our imagination. Because we do, we tend to program our minds to come up with the worst case scenarios, just so we're prepared for them. And so I feel like that's what the Nine of Swords is, it keeps you awake at night and it keeps you thinking. But if you don't keep an eye on that, if you let it, it's going to anchor you to the present and not let you move forward. Kind of immobilizes us with fear so that we can't, if you're afraid of the future, you don't want to move into the future. And so I feel it's just a note of caution, to just not give in to those anxieties and not let those fears about the future stop you from moving forward. Kind of get out of your own head a little bit. Don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze it. Just know that this is the right time. It's the right time to move on from this period, this kind of darker, very emotional, very turbulent period in your life, and move towards these areas that excite you and that liven you up. What makes you feel alive, right? What sets your soul on fire? Find that again. And of course, that always comes with anxiety because it's scary. Change is always scary. But just remember that it's just like a fear of the dark. It's not necessarily that there's anything tangible that's in the dark that's going to get us, but a lot of it's coming from our own sensory perceptions, I guess, our own thoughts and the way that we perceive the world and what we are afraid of coming out of that darkness or that unknown, the future. So I guess I would say, like, for kind of an overall word of advice, I would say just like take that imagination and put it towards wondering where this path is going to take you. What things are you going to be able to see and do and build by following that dream? So that's what I've got for you this week. I will be doing another one next week. Feel free to drop a comment down below and let me know if this resonated with you, or if you have any comments or questions or anything like that. Go ahead and follow us to see some more content. Again, I'll be doing these next week and weekly as well. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.